Okay, so last skip the line for the week, man, and this one's for Tom Bredesen. I've actually kept one specifically for last because I was requested to do so by Tom Bredesen. The message over here was, Phil, this one is a little different. I would warn sensitive viewers, plus read the description on the video before reacting. Also, don't record this video first thing. You do when you start the day. I would do this last. So I'm actually doing it last, right at the end of all of the skip the line reactions. I'm doing it as my very last reaction for the day. Well, for the week, essentially. And that's the skip the line reactions done. So I'm very glad that I was able to get those to you a bit earlier. We actually did 20 this week. It wasn't 15. We actually, I took in 5 more. And now it's complete. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate all of the support. I know it's the usual suspect that always requests so many different reactions, and I really do appreciate that. And yeah, I'm going to run this skip the line this week. The form will open again today. I'm going to run it one more week at $9. Like, this is literally the last week. This is the final week. I run it for $9. And then it will go back to its original price the week after. So the form will open today, and it will run for one more week, and I will take 20 bookings. It seems like you guys really enjoyed that, so, and I've got the time. I'm happy to do it. For all the rest, if you guys want to join the Sphere, link is down in the pinned comment. You can also join the Fable community, which costs absolutely nothing, and you can come and have a chat with me there, and you can interact with the Cucumber Squad there as well. And yeah, okay, so let's this one is Susanne Sundfør, When the Lord. You said I must read the description as well, so let's do that quickly. Okay, so Susanne Sundfør has composed an original soundtrack to accompany Norwegian documentary Self-Portrait. I apologize, it's called Self-Portrait, but I'm actually going to butcher the way they say it in Norwegian, I'm assuming. Self-Portrait tells the story of one of Norway's leading photographer artists, Line Marie Fossen, who was suffering from anorexia and sadly passed away at the beginning of December. That's sad. When the Lord is the lead track for Self-Portrait, the feature-length documentary directed by Margaret Olin and Katja Hoeksen and Espen Wolen follows photographer artist Line Marie Fossen, who stopped eating at the age of 10, and is a raw and honest insight into her acclaimed photography and her struggle with anorexia. The film will be released on 1 week after the soundtrack on the 17th of January 2020. Okay, so that's already passed. And that's about that. So, just a short little disclaimer for you guys. I'm assuming there will be footage of this lady who was anorexic. So for those of you who might get sensitive about that, and if you can't handle that, maybe it's best to not watch the video. Actually, in fact, what I will do is I'm going to put a copyright watermark on here, just in case. I'd hate for this to get blocked. You'll still be able to see it, but let's get straight into it, man. Let's go. Shot, obviously, so it obviously shows her. You can see she's anorexic, and that's yes, you can see her body is really, really deprived of nutrition. That first shot of that old lady is absolutely beautiful. I absolutely love. Firstly, I like the grayscale photography. I love black and white photography, and most specifically, I do love pictures of hands. I think hands really tell a story. Right, and I think photographers I think hands and even faces, like if you really get a really beautiful shot of somebody, but hands tells a story, right? Because these were your tools throughout life. This is what actually got things done, and your age shows in your hands. Even if you do a lot to your face and you you can cosmetically change a lot about your face, but your age will always tell through the hands, and your hardships almost always show through your hands. And that's why I really love pictures of hands. Jeez, what a shot, a beautiful shot. Jeez, these shots are absolutely incredible, man. These are beautiful shots, man. It's absolutely devastating to see something like that. It's devastating to see. It's devastating to see a human being wither like that, because it's not just a physical withering; it's actually a psychological withering, and it's far more than just the body that's that's like sort of withering away. It's also her mental capacity that's withering away with it, because this cannot be good for you psychologically. It starts off psychologically, and it must be. I can't imagine how difficult it is to handle something like this. I cannot imagine what it is to handle something like this, and such a talented person as well. It's crazy, man. It's and you see, it's like when the Lord. I see why the title is called "When the Lord." When the Lord does certain things, and sometimes you tend to ask yourself as a human being, is if I had to retitle this song, I'd be like, why, Lord? Nothing wrong with asking why. A lot of people will also be like, because that's just, you don't ask God why. No, why? Why? It's worthwhile. It's there's nothing wrong with asking the question of why. Do you know what I mean? It's hard to think that, when people say everything happens for a reason. Certain things you tend to think, but what is the reason for this though? We live in a strange world of fallen souls. Imagine the humility of a human being. I apologize for pausing. Imagine the humility of a human being that while going through their own suffering, right, takes the time to capture the plight of others who are suffering. Just take that into consideration. Like, this is a person who's going through with their own suffering, right? Taking the time to be there, malnourished, to capture the plight of others so that the world can see it. It's such an unselfish thing, such an unnarcissistic thing to do. Beautiful at the same time. When the Lord has descended on all glories that you can. Jeez, what a shot, man. She captured moments, she captured expressions. That's that airy image of her going through those halls with everything dilapidating and decaying, as kind of like a real life sort of reference and analogy for her own body, right? Something that is innately beautiful, just being left in neglect and ruin. It's a crazy, it really is a crazy little piece over here, because you can see, I mean, this was innately a beautiful place. This was built to be beautiful, as is every human being. And her walking through this kind of is like such a telling story, like that juxtaposition of just the stark comparison between the two, which are so similar. It's like inanimate object versus human being. And yet it just goes to show you the fragility of life, that it's all disposable at the end of the day. All that's left is the story of what happened here once. All that's left is what you were able to capture and what you weren't. And whatever you weren't able to capture died in time. And whatever you were able to capture told the story. Just crazy little thought that came to me there. She actually captured the journey of her sickness for others to see. The reality, the true reality. It's insane, and it's actually haunting. It's terrible to see human beings like that. Shame is love of a prison. Away from the dawn, snow covered her softly. Lay your hands on me. Wake me up, my darling, when the Lord has descended on us. All the worries that you carried with you, they are lost in embrace. Jesus. That is officially one of the hardest pieces of content we've ever had to watch. Although one of the most important pieces of content that we have ever had to watch as well, in the sense that a lot of people tend to sort of skew away from reality and be like, oh no, we've got it so terrible. Oh no, the hubris of some people to be like, oh no, our lives are terrible. No, we're oppressed. Like I've said in some of my comments, you do not understand for the privileged, specifically the privileged West. You do not understand what real suffering is. You do not understand what poverty really is. You think this is just a journey of just one person that's gone through this, right? There's people in her position that look like that who actually don't want to go through that. They just have no food and stuck in a spiral of complete famine in the continent I live in many countries in the continent I live in. But we've got the hubris of some people who will tell you, oh, you better check yourself. We're living in a weird world, man. We really, really, really are. Look. May she rest in peace. The one thing, before I go, the one thing that's going to stick with me is her pictures of herself, as horrific as they were to see, were beautiful pictures though. It's crazy because you wouldn't really refer to them as such, because you know you can see it's a birth thing. It's a person literally just melting away. It's a person suffering in the image, but the image itself, the shot itself, is absolutely beautiful. Well taken, great lighting. It's like showing the tragedy of her life through the beauty of what she was able to achieve in her life. The beauty of her talents were there in full display whilst showing the tragedy of her life. And that I find an insane concept to wrap my head around. That is the real world. That is pain. That is suffering. Let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for this week. It was absolutely fantastic. We had an insane variety of stuff this week, which I thought was great. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy, and peace.